It's our declaration of economic independence.
Today, the S&P 500 slid to its lowest level since September.
Tariffs are simply too high.
Forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn.
The era of rules-based globalization and free trade is over.
It's back, baby, we're rich!
10% tariff on nearly every country in the world.
This is amateur hour, and it needs to stop.
Over the recent week, the world seems to be going up in flames. But you might still be wondering, why are these tariffs keep coming back? Can they actually be implemented? What might happen next? And most important question, where should you invest it in? Don't worry, today I'll walk you through everything you need to know about tariff. Hi, I'm Little Pudding and let's get started. First, let's establish what tariff mean. A tariff is basically a tax on goods that are imported into your country. Usually there are a minimum value before tariff is applied. Now, Trump imposed tariff primarily as part of his American First economic policies. His idea is that the US import a lot of goods from other countries mainly because the cost of making one item in USA is much higher than making it in, let's say, China. So the logic behind raising tariff is this: if you make it more expensive for other countries to sell their product in the US, then American-made goods become more competitive within the country. This is supposed to encourage local production and bring back jobs to US. Therefore, Trump used level of trade deficit as an indicator in how he will impose tariff. Meaning, if you buy from US less than US buy from you, you get more tariff. However, there are three main mistakes in his approach. First, he misunderstood the US economy. The US is a consumer-driven market, meaning it doesn't produce as much goods as it consumes. Instead, it specializes in service and tech, which is completely normal. What Trump did is like saying if you are a doctor, but you never give service to Walmart. Therefore, you decide not to buy from Walmart anymore until they start purchasing your service back. This shouldn't make any sense, right? Next, tariff can lead to inflation. Imposing a large-scale tariff can make everything more expensive. When prices rise, people buy less, and business, especially those that rely on components from places like China, face higher costs. That strain can ripple through the economy and lead to a recession. And finally, it is damaging not only to USA, but to the global trade system itself. The world has been moving toward open trade system, and suddenly raising tariff without consulting World Trade Organization kinda break long-standing agreement and hurt your credibility in international diplomacy. If tariffs are raised on a small scale, they typically don't cause much damage. In fact, tariff can be a legitimate tool to protect local industry or send a political message. But what Trump did on Liberation Day was far from small. He didn't just target China, he imposed high tariff on all countries around the world, including allies like Canada and European Union. These weren't minor adjustments either. They were broad, aggressive, and historically high rate. Instead of strengthening the US economy, the move created uncertainty, inflation, and supply chain disruption. As of today, China faced imposed tariff of up to 145% plus an additional 25% on US steel, aluminum, and automobiles. In response, the US faced 125% tariff from China, along with an extra 10 to 15% on crude oil, coal, LNG, agricultural machinery, and farm products. Moving on to the next question. Can this crazy deal actually be done?
Have you considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
Yes,
on
I have.
Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
That's because over the last centuries, Congress has handed the president more trade authority, especially under laws like Section 232, which allowed tariff for national security reasons, and Section 301, which let US punish country for unfair trade practices. But fully and permanently? Likely not. These laws were meant to give president flexibility, but Congress still have the major says. However, in recent years, Trump pushed this flexibility further than ever. Even Biden continued using these powers, expanding Section 301 tariff without consulting Congress, leading to them pass a law demanding more oversight. Biden signed it, but also said that he might ignore it if it interfered with his presidential power. I'll have a separate video that goes deeper into the history of tariff and presidential power if you are interested. Let me know in the comment section, but for now, just know that the issue is way more complicated than just one executive order. So now, the final question, where do you have to invest? Honestly, it is hard to say since we are in uncharted territory. But here are a few possibilities depending on what you believe. First, the US itself. Valuation of Magnificent Seven are relatively cheap. However, even though the proposed tariff may not kick in immediately, Trump's strong push to bring back jobs to America means the risk is still very real. These tariffs would have significant impact if it is actually come into full force. Wedbush Security warned that tech earnings could fall by at least 15%, supply chain would become as messy as COVID era, and the economy could enter recession or even stagflation. European market also dropped recently. Initially, there was a hope that peace talk might ease tension between Russia and Ukraine. But then came April 13 strike in Sumy. On top of that, even though Europe is USA's best friend, they too could face a very serious tariff, which put pressure on their already fragile economy. China is at the center of trade war, taking the full force of new US trade policy. However, looking into the longer term, if US is still this hostile, other countries might turn to China as a safer trade partner. Furthermore, China shows strong potential in emerging technologies like drone and AI. Plus, it also have a better standing in export. Chinese export to the US has dropped significantly compared to the first Trump term in 2017, but there are still big concerns. Weak consumption, real estate crisis, and government policies are the things that you should keep your eyes on. And finally, emerging market countries like India, Vietnam are rising star of China plus one strategy, a great alternative if tension with China persists, but don't escalate globally. And if Mar-a-Lago Accord actually come true and lead US dollar to depreciate in order to boost export, it could strengthen emerging market currencies, leading to higher purchasing power overall. So yeah, the world is pretty much messy right now. Tariff, war, crumbling diplomatic relationships, it's all creating a pretty foggy outlook. But remember, uncertainty also comes with opportunities. Whether you are eyeing for US tech, curious about China rebound, or exploring the emerging market, what matters is staying adaptable and remain level-headed. I'll be keeping a close eye on how this play out in the following weeks. If you found this useful, please consider dropping a like and tell me in the comment what I did wrong. This is my first video after all, and if you like what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing. That would help me out a lot. Thank you very much and see you guys next week.